We're out of the slaughter pen farm today here in Fredericksburg, and we're on the trail to try to tell the story of John Pelham. Here pretty soon we're going to interview an author of a new book, Glorious Courage by Sarah K. Byerly. And it's a really good book, a really short read too. It kind of covers the life of Pelham leading up to his death in 1863. And the reason why we're here though at Slaughter Pen is because this is the location that Pelham pretty much does his greatest deed, if you will. He does his harshest work of death here on this field, raking the lines of the Union soldiers. So we're going to walk out there to where he sighted in his guns. Now, coming from the direction that I'm walking right now, Franklin had Gibbon and Meade bring their men in this direction towards Prospect Hill, which is right in front of me. And they would be stretched out in facing this direction where I'm headed now, all along this line. The unfortunate part about the fight that happens out here is Franklin has more than enough men to attack that hill and probably succeed at his job at hand. But instead of attacking fully, he only sends in about 8,000 soldiers, and the gains that Meade has over here on this hill can't be followed up, and reinforcements do not come in time to help. So Meade has to withdraw, and the Confederates crush the line over here, securing the victory for the Confederates here at Fredericksburg. Now, if you're a soldier out here in 1862 during the Battle of Fredericksburg and you're coming across this field, there's no corn. The planting season has pretty much wrapped up as far as that's concerned, and it is really cold out here. The wool that these guys are wearing is not enough to keep them warm, and they're pretty much freezing their tails off out here. And going across this field, as they get to a point that we're about to walk to over here, they get to an area where Pelham is starting to sight in his guns, and from his field glasses across this direction, he can actually look over here, and he can see that his guns are ripping people apart and going down the lines. So we're going to head out to this tree here in a second, and we're going to, or where the tree used to be, and we're going to talk about that over there on that part of the field. So I'm out here walking this line now where Pelham's guns would have been sighted in. And conveniently on this farm field, there is a row that goes all the way down to a Civil War Trails sign that describes the action on this field. And also, there's words on there that speaks to the actions of a couple of Medal of Honor recipients out here too on this field. But right about where this sign is, there used to be a lone tree standing in the field. And Pelham, about a mile down the road there, has moved his guns forward deployed of the main lines that used to be out here on Prospect Hill. And he's positioned himself out there with this artillery, one of his best guns that he has, and his crew, usually about anywhere between 6 to 8 men per gun. And he's kind of back and forth between a couple of positions. But while he's out there, this light artillery, or this horse artillery, cavalry artillery, is able to move around and be very mobile. So he's got his guns out there, forward deployed, and he's ready to aim in this direction. And he finds that tree and he sights it. Now this is the way that an artillerist finds a position and is able to hone in where his firepower is supposed to go. And a guy like Pelham is so good at his job that once he gets in charge of guns, it is an extremely precarious and dangerous situation for the infantry that's out here in this line. Fortunate enough for the Union soldiers that are out here, there's only the gun that's firing at them. But they are stalled for so long that they think that there's more than one gun over there. They think that there's an entire fleet of guns over there. And Pelham is just cool as a cucumber, working the gun with his men, getting off his horse and helping them sight in the gun, helping them load the gun, helping them fire and reposition, and then moving the gun back and forth to keep it from being sighted in by Union artillery over here that's trying to train in on them and destroy their caissons and guns. It's an amazing thing what he did out here in this field. And I'm at a position right now roughly where that tree would have been. So if you imagine yourself being a Union soldier facing the way I'm facing right now, and this cannonball or this artillery is just coming down the line and it's raking through your lines and killing as many people as possible. That's what these guys are facing. And that's what Pelham is doing out here on this field. So here we are, out here walking the line, and you can just make out that little sign right there over the corner of my shoulder here. That sign kind of marks the point where there may or may not have been a lone tree out here in the middle of this field. And artillerists are using that tree as a range finder, if you will, to mark the spot and fire towards it to see how they need to elevate their guns in order to launch projectiles to hit the line going down through here. John Pelham is about a mile over that way, and he is using this field too, aiming in this direction, running it down the line. But instead, he's most likely using the soldiers as his rangefinder, and he's looking through his glasses, and he can see when his artillery goes down this line and starts breaking through people, he can see them being ripped apart. One of the most amazing tales about John Pelham that comes out of that book that Sarah K. Byerly wrote is his reservation about the death that he's creating. In his own words, you can kind of tell that the young man is almost sickened by the scenes of battle after the war. And he's kind of sickened by his excitement and his fun that he's having while he's causing all these deaths. It's the most exciting thing that he does as a soldier, going into battle, and he loves the adrenaline. But after it's all over with, he questions the work that he does because he sees the results. He sees the arms and legs blown off and people who are decapitated on these fields. And that is the thing that he struggles with the most, but he becomes real good in what he does. John Pelham's a young man from Alabama. He's 17 years old and his father secures him an appointment to West Point. He gets there and he signs himself away to a long-term contract to get that education because his father doesn't have it together. His father can't secure him an education otherwise, for some reason, even though he's a planter that's extremely wealthy at one point in time. While John's there, the country starts to unravel and come apart. He has to make a decision. Either he fights for his state and gets a commission through the Confederacy and leaves West Point early, or he fights with West Point and takes a chance at being arrested simply because he's from the South, being detained because now they're fearing that all of these cadets are leaving. What does he do? Well, he sneaks out on a train overnight and goes back to Alabama. Here in a second, I'm about to take you over to Pelham's Corner. Now, as we're standing out here at the slaughter pen farm, I want you to just take a look around me here at the 450 acres that have been preserved thanks to the American Battlefield Trust. All of this beauty leading up to Prospect Hill. And if it wasn't for that organization and others coming together, this is going to turn into what you're about to see at Pelham's Corner here in just a second. So keep this in your mind, all this beauty behind you here, this wonderful battlefield that you can walk around on. And then when we get to Pelham's Corner, you'll see what I'm talking about. Sometimes we pass by corners like these and they kind of go unnoticed, especially if you're not a big history buff. This particular place here is called Pelham's Corner, and this is kind of an estimate of where they believe John Pelham and his cannon would have been. As you can tell by all the noise that's around me here and everything that's going on, it is a small little corner of land tucked away in the middle of a city. All this industrial stuff behind me, and it's kind of amazing. One drugstore is across the street, and there's one drugstore that used to be here that's now a Dollar Tree. So one unsuccessful business after another out here taking up the land where John Pelham did his finest work during the American Civil War. Now, it looks like a beautiful, serene place that I'm in right now. John Pelham's Corner. This is the small hill, the rise in the land where Pelham had his gun primarily placed during the action of the Battle of Fredericksburg, aimed off in that direction over there. At first he went down to the riverside, and then he came back up and he placed guns here. And he started taking aim in that direction at the or giving enfilade fire to the Union soldiers that were coming across the field. Amazing thing about this position here is when you're walking around, it kind of looks like you're in the middle of nowhere when you're out here in these trees, but then you make your way a little bit further and it becomes real clear to see that this piece of property is in the middle of an industrial complex. Pretty insane. Now, the Central Virginia Battlefield Trust is responsible for saving this piece of land out here, in concert with some other groups. The cannon that's placed out here, on the other hand, was gifted to them by a couple of people. And if we go over here, there is a placard on the cannon itself that actually gives the names of the people that are responsible for placing the cannon here to honor the fight that happened out here. Central Virginia Battlefield Trust thanks the Blue and Gray Education Society, James W. Davis, the Duff McDuff Green Jr. Fund of the Community Foundation for their generous donation of this cannon. So that's pretty neat to see that those people came together to have this cannon placed here instead of just a sign or a stone monument. So as you can tell, it's a vast difference out here. There's not a lot of this land saved anymore. And it's a pretty sad situation for such a big story. And just a few months after John Pelham does what he does out here on this field, he then ends up in another location where there's a lot of confused stories behind his death. But one thing's universal: he was with his artillery. He did receive a wound that was either to the neck or to the head. And because of the treatment right after the wound and how poorly his body was treated, he ends up dying from it. And he probably could have been saved. His own men were responsible for his maltreatment heading back towards camp. Until next time, this is History with Waffles.